back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be showing us how to sew a very simple gown for beginners, and even if you're not a beginner, you can definitely make this for yourself. So first of all, what I'm having here right now to make this outfit is this fabric. This is an ankara fabric. Then I have my measuring tape, my ruler, my chalk, and also my scissors. So let's begin. Alright guys, so before we begin, this yard, the fabric I'm making use of, this was 3 yards and 13 inches. It wasn't really up to 3 yards, so that's what I'm going to be making use of. So right now I folded this part into 2. So I'm going to cut this stuff out. I'm going to cut the labeling of the fabric out so that we can use this point to start the measurement. First of all, we are going to start by measuring my shoulder to my bust point. So we are going to be marking out ½ inch or 1 inch, depending on how you want to take it. But I'm going to be marking out ½ inch at the beginning here, which is going to serve as our shoulder allowance. Okay, so the next thing is for me to measure from my shoulder point, which is here, to my bust point, which is 10 inches. So that's what I'm going to be marking out. I'm going to mark it also across so that I will be able to join the lines together. The next thing is to mark from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 17 inches. So I'm going to mark out here and also at this point too. So the next thing is for me to go ahead and then connect these lines together. This is the bust point and this is my waist point. So right now what I'm going to do now is to find my shoulder slope. So sorry, I'm going to mark out my shoulder point. So at this point now, I'm going to be marking my shoulder point is 15 inches. So when I divide that 15 inches by 2, it's going to give me 7.5. So that's what I'm going to be marking out here. So you can see I'm starting from the center front and I'm marking it out at this point. So at this point now, I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch, okay, so that it can aid our shoulder slope. So at this point now, I'm still going to mark out the same point as of this, which was 7.5. So you're going to bring in the 7.5 inches here, okay. Then we are going to go up by 1 inch. So this will now serve as our chest line. This point now will now serve as our chest line. So we are going to connect this line to this line. So this point now is going to serve as our chest line, and we are going to draw this line outwards. So now that's our chest line. Then remember that we added that we came down here by 1 inch. So don't forget that point. We came down here by 1 inch. So another thing that we are going to do now is to find the neck width. So the neck width for the front, since this is the front that we are marking, so we are going to be marking 3 by 3, which is the standard for normal bodies, for normal basic bodies. So we are going to be marking out 3 here, then by 3 here also. And we are going to connect that line together. Alright guys, after doing that, what we're going to do right now is to connect this line. This 1 inch that we brought down, this will serve as our shoulder slope. So we'll connect this line to this point. So that's it for the neckline. So the next thing I'm going to find now is, so the next thing we're going to do now is to mark out our nipple to nipple measurement. So my own is 4 inches, 8 inches. So 8 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 4. So I'm going to mark that out here. Okay, and I'm also going to mark that out too on my waist point. Then I'm going to connect these lines together. So guys, from this bust point now, I'm going to be coming down from that bust point by 2 inches. Some people do come down by 1 inch, but I just want to come down by 2 inches. So at this 2 inches point now, this is where my dart is going to start from. This is the front piece. So right now I'm going to come down to my waist point, and then I'm going to be marking out ½ inches on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and then connect these lines together. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to go ahead and then insert my body measurements here. So for my bust point is 38. So 38 divided by 4 is going to give me 9.5 inches. So that's what I'm going to be marking out here. This is 9.5 inches, and I'm still going to mark the same 9.5 inches on my waist, on my chest line. So on my waist point, I have 32 inches. So now 32 inches now divided by 4 is going to give me 8. Okay, so on this 8 inches now, I'm going to be adding 1 inch that we took out for the dart, which will now make it 9 automatically. So that's what I'm going to be marking out here. I'm going to connect these lines together. Okay, so it should look something like this after you must have finished drawing it out. So guys, after doing this, we are going to be marking out the midpoints at this our shoulder slope. Sorry, at this our armhole depth. So I'm going to just mark this here. Okay, then we are going to fold our tape this way, and then we are going to find out the midpoint. But mine is very much easy because this was 8 inches, so I'm just going to mark that out at 4. Okay, 4 inches. So this is the midpoint of that line. So now we are going to be coming in. I'm going to be coming in here by 1 inch. So I'm going to come in by ½ inch. Okay, so you can decide to pick ½ inch depending on how deep you want yours to be. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to be using 1 inch for this. Okay, so this is where the front slope is going to start from. So what we are going to do now is just to connect this line to the shoulder, and then we are going to connect these points. Okay, we are going to connect these points like this down to this very particular point. This will now form our front armhole. Alright, so that is after having that, what we are going to do now is to find that the shoulder of the for the back. So at this point now, we're just going to connect this line, okay, seal directly to this point. You can definitely connect it outwards, okay, but it has to come directly, it has to land on this point for you to be able to have the main slope, sorry, the armhole complete. Alright guys, so that is it. So right now what we're going to be doing now is for us to add our sewing allowance. So what we did was just to mark out for the body. We did not add any sewing allowance to this. So right now I'm just going to be adding 1.5 inch sewing allowance all around this. You can decide to add 1 inch, okay, but for me I'm just making use of 1.5 inch. So guys, after marking that out, what we're going to be doing now is to come over to the neck point here. So at this point now, we are going to be coming down here by 1 inch, which is going to help mark out for the neckline for the back. So I'm just going to connect that line to this point, which is the shoulder point. Alright guys, so once that is done, we are okay and we are done with the front. So what you're going to do now is to go ahead and then cut it out. But as you're cutting it, you're cutting out for only the back piece first of all. Okay, since our back is not here, what you're cutting down is just the front piece. So you're going to be cutting only for the back piece first of all. Okay, not the front. Then we'll now, after cutting, we'll now use the front to cut the back before we'll now come back and then remove the back excess. So for the shoulder here, I'm just going to be adding ½ inch to the shoulder for seam allowance. And also I'm going to add ½ inch to the waist point, so I will have something to use and then attach it to the lower part. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. I'm just marking out ½ inch here so that I will be able to sew it on the skirt. So guys, this is how it looks like after I might have finished cutting it. So at this point now, I am going to notch at this dart point, okay, so that we will be able to identify this point while trying to join. So right now you're going to proceed to cut out the back pieces. So guys, for the back piece, the fabric is still on fold, just like how the front piece was. So we're just going to bring in the front piece onto this other one so that we can be able to cut out the back piece using this one as a guide. So before we do that, we're going to At the back, we are going to mark out 1.5 inch. Okay, so I'm going to be marking out 1.5 inches at this point. To just trace it out and make sure that it is 1.5 inch. So this will now serve as our zip allowance. So you can go ahead and pin this down if your fabric is moving up and down, so I can be able to secure this at a very nice position for yourself. But I'm just going to go ahead and then use my ruler and then just mark out that line. After doing that, the next thing is for us to go ahead and then mark out these points at the back area. So this is the points for my chest line, and that's why I'm marking this out. So I'm just going to connect this here. I'm just going to use my ruler and then connect this downwards so it can come out at the back piece too, for me to know where that stops. After connecting that out for the chest line, you're going to connect it out here too for the waist line. Okay, so I'm going to just fold this over and then mark out these lines. So I'm going to label this our chest line, and this is our waistline. Alright, so I'm going to fold this back. Okay, I'm going to be cutting out these points for the back. So what I'm going to do, the easiest way to transfer your dart to the back is just to lift it up like this and then mark out those points exactly where you see them. Okay. Alright guys, so that is just it. So right now I'm going to be connecting this line directly to the chest line. Alright, so guys, after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be coming down by 1 inch from the chest line. So at this point now I'm going to connect this to this and this to this, and that will be all for the back. So that is now the darts for the back. So what I'm going to be doing now is to go ahead and then slide this place open, just cut it open so I can be able to have a part for the zipper allowance. Okay guys, so before I finish doing that, okay, I just remembered something. What we're going to be doing now is to mark out. We're going to be marking in 1/2 inch. Okay, from this point here, we're going to be marking in 1/2 inch. So this is going to help to remove the bulkiness from the back once you are finished inserting your zip. So I'm going to be connecting this line directly to the beginning here. And the next thing is I'm going to cut it out. So guys, that is it for the back. We're done with the back. So right now we're going to come back to the front, and then we are going to cut this out so we can have our front piece. Alright guys, so after doing that now, the bodies are definitely complete for the front and the back. They're both complete now. So we are going to move over to the hand. We are going to try and cut out the sleeves. The next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the sleeves. So at this point now, I've already folded this. My fabric is being folded into 4. So this is 2, and you now fold it back again on top of it, and this is 4. Okay, so right now the length that I'm going to be going with is 8 inches. Alright, so this is 8 inches, but then I'm not going to be cutting at 8. I'm going to be cutting this at 9.5 because the folding that I want it to be a little bit bigger at the hand, at the arm area. So you can use 9.5 or you can use 10. So you can fold like 2 inches, okay, depending on how wide you want your fold to be. So yeah, so I'm going to be using 9.5 for my own. So I'm just going to mark this out here. Alright, so also at this point, this other upper arm, the bigger part of the arm, I'm going to be using 14 inches. So now I'm going to be dividing that 14 inches by 2. So once I divide it by 2, I'm going to be having 7.5. So I'm just going to go ahead and then mark out that 7.5 here. So now on this point, I'm going to be using 13 inches, which I'm going to be marking out 6.5 at this area. So I'm going to connect these 2 lines together. Alright guys, so the next thing what I'm going to be doing now is to try to create my my armhole, okay, this point. So what I like to do, since I don't have my pattern with me, I'm just going to draw number 2 here. So you have to be very careful while drawing this, okay. But right now, if you do it like that, you notice that this point is much wider than the upper area. So what you do is this, you just try to retrace this, okay, then you go down, and that is it. So right now, this other line that we have here, this is now the line that I'm going to be cutting on. So you can definitely practice this on another fabric before you transfer it to your main fabric, to be sure that whatever it is that you drew is normal for you, okay. So this is what it is. I'm going to be marking this out at this point, but I'm not going to be cutting it directly on this, because I'm going to be adding ½ inch on top, so I can be able to have something to use and attach this to the main shoulder. But also at this point, okay, at this point I'm going to be marking in 1 inch for seam allowance. So that's what I'm marking out right now. And the next thing right now is for us to mark out the skirt area so that we can attach it to the blouse. So one thing you're going to know is that on this skirt we are not going to be making use of that, so I'm not going to be marking out points for that. Alright, so since we've gotten that out of the way, then let's begin. So right now we are going to be marking out the length of the skirt. So as you can see that, okay, first of all, let's cut this thing out. At the length of the skirt, okay, one side is longer than the other. So for me, since I'm also very tall, I have to use 15 inches, okay. So for me right now, one side is going to be 15 inches for me. So which is the longest part of that particular distance. So I'm just going to be marking out 15 inches here, okay. So let's just mark out the 15 inches and then connect the lines together so we can proceed. Alright guys, so after doing that, now it's time for us to mark our body measurement. So the next thing now is going to be my hips, sorry, my waistline. So my waist now is 32 inches. So 32 inches, I'm going to divide that 32 inches by 4. So I'm going to be having 8 inches here. So after that, the next thing is for me to mark out my hip. So now the distance from my waist to my hip, I'm marking out 9 inches. Then I'm going to connect that line together. So guys, why I'm marking out 9 inches at this point is because so I'll be able to have an inch to attach this upwards, okay, because there's no sewing allowance here. So normally it's supposed to be 8 inches. So right now I'm just connecting that, I'm just adding that inches here so you can be able to connect that on top. The next thing I'm going to be marking out is my hip point. So my hip point is 41 inches and I'm going to be dividing that by 4. I'm going to be having 10.5 inches. So I'm going to mark that out. After marking that out, the next thing you're going to do is on this line, okay, on the last length of the line, whatever we had here, we're going to be adding 1 inch to that, which is 11.5 inches. So that's what I'm going to be marking out at this point. Then I'm going to go ahead and connect these lines together. Okay. But right now, since our body is not all flat and all straight like this, I'm just going to do something like this, just to make this a little bit bold. Okay, so by so doing this is no longer, it doesn't look all straight and flat anymore. I'm going to be adding 1.5 inch allowance to this. So guys, still on the cotton, we are going to be marking now, this is for the back, so we're going to be marking out 1.5 inch at this side so that it can serve as our zipper allowance. So I'm just going to mark this out, 1.5 inch. And I'm just going to draw a line to connect that together. Okay, so after doing that, we're going to be placing this front part like this on top of it, directly on that line. So guys, we're going to be placing this directly on the line. Then we are going to be tracing this out, okay. So right now I have to remember that since we did not include that, so there's no need doing any other thing at the back. So the only difference between the front and back was just to include the sewing allowance at the back. So guys, this is it both for the front and also for the back. This is the front and this is the back. So you are going to cut this place open. So what I'm going to do now on the back piece, I'm going to go in with my pins. I'm just going to pin this important part down, which I know might definitely lift. So you can go ahead and then cut out the style that is on the image. So I'm just going to be pinning this down so that it will not disturb or it will not move out of line. So guys, after pinning that down, I'm just going to open this up like this. Okay, I'm going to just open it up like this. Then I'm going to place the front part on top of it. Now we are going to measure out the part that is short and also the part that is longer, since that is how it looks on the image. So right now we are going to, on the right side, we notice that on the picture the right side is shorter and the left, while the left is longer. So for me, I'm going to be taking from my waistline, I'm going to be taking 12 inches from my waist. I'm going to be taking 12 inches on that waistline. So now, depending on how short you want this to be, you can go in by 10 inches or you can go in by 11 or 9 inches. It all depends on you. So me, I'm going to be taking 12 inches for mine, while on this side is the 15 inches that we took earlier, if you can remember. So why I'm not going to be adding sewing allowance to this the last point. Why I did not add was because I want to sew this once I add this, okay, to the gathers that we are going to attach to this. Whatever inches is going to take is not really going to be a problem, should in case this 15 inches is actually longer than what it's supposed to be. I don't know if you understand. So yeah, that's just it. So I'm just going to connect this 12 inches. I'm just going to connect this 12 inches line down to that 15 inches point. So that is just what we're going to do. I'm just going to cut this out. So this is going to be, guys, whatever it is that you're going to be attaching to this is going to be on this line. So that is it for the skirt for now. So let's move on.